Most people never pay attention to quarters. They spend them, lose them, or forget them. But collectors know something most people don't. Every quarter has a story, and some of them hide secrets that can completely change their value. So before you ignore your next coin, take a closer look. If you have a 1979 quarter in your pocket right now, stop for a second, because what you are about to hear might completely change the way you look at everyday coins forever. Most people spend these quarters without even thinking. They drop them in vending machines, leave them in car cup holders, or hand them over for a cup of coffee. But what if I told you that one single 1979 quarter could potentially be worth thousands, and in extremely rare cases, even up to $80,000? Sounds unbelievable, right? That's exactly what makes this story so fascinating. Let's go back for a moment. The year 1979 was a turning point in American coin history. The United States was going through a time of change, economically, culturally, and even in the way money itself was being made. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in massive numbers, especially quarters, because they were essential in everyday life. People used them for everything from payphones to parking meters. Nobody thought twice about them. But behind the scenes at the Mint, something very important was happening. Small variations, minting mistakes, and rare production anomalies were being created, without anyone realizing that decades later, collectors would be willing to pay life-changing money for them. The 1979 quarter belongs to the Washington Quarter series, which has been in circulation since 1932. On the front, you see the familiar profile of George Washington, calm and firm, a symbol of early American leadership. On the back, an eagle stands proudly with outstretched wings, holding arrows and an olive branch. It represents strength and peace at the same time. To most people, it's just a regular quarter. But to collectors, every tiny detail matters. Now here's where things start getting interesting. In 1979, quarters were mainly struck at two mints, Philadelphia and Denver. Coins from Philadelphia usually don't have a mint mark, while Denver coins carry a small D. At first glance, this seems like a minor detail, but for collectors, it is everything. The mint mark can determine rarity, and rarity determines value. But the real magic lies not in the regular coins, but in the mistakes. Because sometimes, during the minting process, something goes wrong. A coin might be struck twice, creating a doubled image. The design might be slightly off-center. The metal planchet might be incorrect. Or in rare cases, a coin might be struck with the wrong die entirely. These are called mint errors, and they are the hidden treasures of the coin world. Now imagine this. A 1979 quarter with a strong double die error, where the lettering or Washington's profile appears slightly doubled. To an ordinary person, it might look like a blurry coin. But to a trained eye, it is a rare mint mistake that can turn a 25-cent piece into something worth hundreds, thousands, or even more depending on condition and rarity. Condition is everything in the world of coins. A scratched, worn-out quarter from 1979 might still only be worth face value. But a perfectly preserved one, especially one that has been graded by professional services and rated mint state, meaning it looks almost brand new, can be a completely different story. There are collectors who search through rolls of quarters from banks, just hoping to find one that looks slightly different. They don't need fancy equipment. Sometimes just a magnifying glass is enough. They look for misaligned strikes, unusual shine, odd textures, or anything that doesn't feel normal. Because normal is common, and common is cheap. But rarity? Rarity is where the value explodes. Some 1979 quarters with rare, minting errors have been sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars in collector markets. And in extremely rare, almost legendary cases, especially if the coin has multiple rare characteristics combined with flawless condition, values have been reported by collectors and auction records reaching astonishing figures, even up to $80,000. Now, before you get too excited, let's be clear about something important. Not every 1979 quarter is valuable. In fact, the vast majority are still only worth 25 cents. But the difference between a common coin and a rare one can be so small that most people would never notice it. That's what makes this so thrilling. because somewhere out there, in old jars, forgotten piggy banks, or even in circulation today, a rare 1979 quarter could still be hiding in plain sight. Think about that for a moment. A coin that passed through countless hands. A coin that may have been used to buy gum, soda, or parking time. A coin that nobody cared about for decades. And yet, under the right conditions, it could become one of the most valuable coins in a collector's collection. Collectors especially look for proof like surfaces, strong luster, sharp details in Washington's hair and facial features, and perfectly centered strikes. Even the smallest imperfection in the minting process can turn a normal coin into a rare collectible. There's also something emotional about coins like this. They're not just metal. They are pieces of history. They connect us to a time when everyday life was different, when people carried coins in their pockets because digital payments didn't exist, when a quarter actually meant something in daily survival. And now, decades later, those same coins are being rediscovered and re-evaluated under a completely different light. One of the most fascinating things about coin collecting is that discoveries still happen today. People find rare coins in bank rolls, estate collections, old drawers, and sometimes even in pocket change. It doesn't require being an expert to start, just curiosity and attention to detail. So if you ever come across a 1979 quarter, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Flip it over. Check the details. Look at the edges. Compare it with others if you can. Because in this world, knowledge is literally money. And here's the real twist in this story. The same coin that most people would spend without a second thought could, in the right condition and with the right rare error, be worth more than a luxury car, a house down payment, or even years of income. That's the power hidden inside something so small. A 1979 quarter is not just a piece of currency. It is a possibility, a mystery, a silent reminder that value is not always obvious at first glance. And that brings us to the final thought. If you have this coin, if you really have a 1979 quarter sitting somewhere right now, you might want to take a second look before you spend it. Because while most will only ever be worth 25 cents, a rare few, the truly extraordinary ones, could potentially reach life-changing value in the collector's world. Sometimes treasure doesn't come buried in the ground. Sometimes it's already in your pocket. If you have a 1969 quarter in your hands right now, don't rush to spend it. Because what looks like a simple 25-cent coin could actually carry a story far bigger than most people ever imagine. Most people see a quarter and think nothing of it. It buys a snack, a parking meter, maybe gets tossed into a jar and forgotten. But coins like the 1969 Washington quarter are part of a much deeper world. One where history, minting errors, rarity, and collector demand can turn something ordinary into something truly extraordinary. Let's go back to 1969 for a moment. The world was changing fast. It was a time of cultural revolution, space exploration excitement, and major shifts in the United States economy. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to keep up with everyday use. Quarters were especially important. They were workhorse coins used constantly in daily life. The 1969 quarter belongs to the Washington Quarter series, a design that began in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. On the front, you see Washington's strong and serious profile, a symbol of leadership and national identity. On the back, the eagle stands proudly with its wings spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch, strength and peace balanced together. To most people in 1969, it was just money. Nothing special, nothing rare, nothing worth saving. But collectors think differently. Because in the world of coins, what matters is not just age, but what happened during production. The 1969 quarters were struck at different U.S. mint facilities, mainly Philadelphia and Denver. Philadelphia coins typically have no mint mark, while Denver coins carry a small D under the date. That tiny detail can already create differences in rarity and value among collectors. But the real attention in coins like this comes from something much more interesting: errors. Minting errors happen when something goes slightly wrong during production. And even a tiny mistake can turn a normal coin into a rare collectible. For example, A coin might be struck off-center, meaning the design is slightly shifted. Or it might have a double die effect, where parts of the lettering or image appear doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. To an everyday person, these might look like imperfections, but to collectors, they are signatures of rarity. Now, imagine holding a 1969 quarter with a noticeable mint error. The date might appear slightly doubled. The lettering might look shadowed, or the eagle on the reverse might show unusual thickness or distortion. These details are exactly what collectors search for under magnification. Because the truth is simple. Perfect coins are common, but imperfect coins are rare. And rarity is where value begins. Condition also plays a huge role. A 1969 quarter that has been heavily circulated, meaning it has scratches, wear, and fading, will usually still be worth only face value. But a coin that has been preserved in near perfect condition, known as mint state, can be significantly more desirable. Professional grading services evaluate coins based on sharpness, shine, surface quality, and strike clarity. A high-grade 1969 quarter, especially one with a verified mint error, can attract strong interest from collectors. There are collectors who spend years searching through rolls of coins from banks, hoping to find exactly this kind of hidden gem. They carefully inspect each quarter, not just for age, but for anything unusual. A slight doubling of the date, a strange texture on Washington's hair, a weak strike on the eagle's feathers. These small details can completely change the coin's identity. And that is what makes this hobby so powerful. It's not just collecting, it's discovery. Over time, some 1969 quarters with rare minting errors and exceptional condition have sold for amounts far beyond their face value. While most are still worth only 25 cents, certain rare varieties, especially those with strong double die errors or high-grade preservation, can reach hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on collector demand. The key word is always rare, because not every coin is special. In fact, most are completely ordinary. But the possibility that a rare one might exist keeps collectors searching every single day. There's also something deeply interesting about the psychology of coins like this. They represent a bridge between everyday life and hidden value. A coin that once bought a soda or paid for a phone call could, decades later, be viewed as a collectible artifact. Think about how many 1969 quarters have already been lost, spent, or melted down over time. Every coin that disappears makes the remaining ones slightly more interesting to collectors. Scarcity slowly builds without anyone noticing. That's how value quietly develops in the background. Another important factor is recognition. Many valuable coins are not obvious at first glance. You might have to rotate them under light, zoom in on details, or compare them with a standard coin to notice differences. That's why many rare finds happen purely by accident. Someone simply pays closer attention than everyone else. The 1969 quarter becomes especially interesting when you consider that it sits in a period where the U.S. Mint was transitioning and refining its production methods. Small inconsistencies during this era sometimes led to varieties that collectors later identified and categorized. And once collectors identify a variety, demand can grow. Because in collecting, knowledge spreads value. Now imagine this scenario. A coin that was once thrown into a cash register without a second thought is later discovered to have a rare minting anomaly. It gets authenticated. It gets graded. Suddenly, it is no longer just a quarter. It becomes a piece of numismatic interest, studied and sought after by collectors. That transformation is what makes coin collecting so addictive for many people. It turns everyday objects into mysteries waiting to be solved. But here's something important to understand. There is no guarantee that any specific 1969 quarter in circulation is valuable. Most are not. The vast majority remain common coins. However, the possibility of rare errors existing means every coin has at least a small chance of being something more. And that is enough to keep people looking. Because sometimes life-changing discoveries don't come from obvious places. They come from attention to detail, from curiosity, from taking a second look at something everyone else ignores. So if you ever come across a 1969 quarter, don't dismiss it too quickly. Hold it under light. Check the date. Look closely at Washington's profile. Examine the eagle on the back. See if anything looks unusual compared to a standard coin. Because while most of these quarters will always remain simple pocket change, a few rare ones, the ones with the right combination of condition and minting error, can become surprisingly valuable in the collector world. And that is the quiet truth behind coins like this. They don't announce their value. They hide it until someone pays attention. So now you know the real story behind a 1969 quarter, a coin that most people ignore every single day without a second thought. It's strange when you think about it. Something so small, something that fits in your palm, something that once bought everyday items without any importance, could potentially carry hidden value that only reveals itself to people who take the time to look closer. That's really the key message here. Most valuable things in life don't look valuable at first. Coins like the 1969 quarter remind us that history is still sitting in circulation, passing through hands, wallets, and cash registers even today. And while most of them will always remain ordinary, the rare ones depend on one thing: attention. So the next time you receive change, don't just move on automatically. Take a second. Look at what you've been given. You never know what story might be hiding in plain sight. Because in the world of coins, the difference between 25 cents and something far more valuable is often just a small detail that almost everyone misses. And sometimes that small detail can change everything. If you have a 1986 quarter sitting in your pocket, wallet, or even a forgotten jar at home, don't dismiss it too quickly, because what looks like a simple 25-cent coin might actually carry more history, and in rare cases more value, than most people ever realize. Most people see a quarter and think nothing of it. It's just everyday change, something you spend without a second thought. But the truth is, coins like the 1986 Washington quarter are part of a much larger story, one that connects history, minting technology, collector demand, and hidden errors that can completely transform a coin's value. Let's go back for a moment. The year 1986 was an important time in modern American history. The economy was evolving, technology was improving, and everyday life was becoming faster and more connected. Coins were still a major part of daily transactions. Credit cards existed, but cash was still king. And the quarter was one of the most used coins in circulation. The 1986 quarter is part of the Washington Quarter series, which began in 1932 to honor George Washington. On the front, you see the iconic profile of Washington, representing leadership, strength, and the foundation of the United States. On the reverse, the powerful eagle design symbolizes freedom and national pride. To most people, it's just a regular coin. But to collectors, every detail matters. In 1986, quarters were produced at multiple U.S. mint facilities, mainly Philadelphia and Denver. Philadelphia coins typically have no mint mark, while Denver coins carry a small D under the date. That tiny detail alone can help collectors identify different versions of the same coin. But the real excitement begins when something unusual happens during production. Because coins are made by massive machines operating at extremely high speed, mistakes sometimes occur. These mistakes are called mint errors, and they are the hidden treasures of the coin world. A 1986 quarter might have a double die error, where letters or numbers appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment during striking. It might have a weak strike, where the design doesn't fully impress onto the metal. It might be off-center, where the design is shifted to one side. Or it might have unusual surface textures caused by planchet issues. To an ordinary person, these might look like flaws. But to collectors, these are signs of rarity. And rarity is where value begins. Now, imagine holding a 1986 quarter and noticing something slightly off. Maybe the lettering on Liberty looks doubled. Maybe Washington's profile shows a strange shadow effect. Maybe the eagle on the back looks unusually sharp or uneven compared to a normal coin. These small differences are exactly what collectors search for under magnification. Because in coin collecting, the smallest detail can completely change the identity of a coin. Condition is another major factor. A 1986 quarter that has been heavily circulated, scratched, worn, and faded will usually still be worth face value. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, known as mint state, can be significantly more desirable. Collectors and grading services evaluate coins based on shine, strike quality, surface preservation, and overall eye appeal. A high-grade 1986 quarter, especially one with a rare mint error, can attract serious attention in the collector market. There are people who spend hours searching through rolls of quarters from banks, hoping to find something special. They examine coin after coin, looking for anything that stands out. A slight doubling of the date, a misaligned image, a different texture under light. Most coins are ordinary, but occasionally, something unusual appears. And that moment changes everything. Because what was once just pocket change suddenly becomes a collectible. Over time, some 1986 quarters with rare characteristics have gained attention from collectors and achieved values far beyond their original face value. While most remain worth only 25 cents, certain error coins or exceptionally well-preserved examples can reach hundreds or even more depending on rarity and demand. The key factor is always uniqueness. Coins become valuable when they are different from the rest, and that difference often comes from mistakes made during production or from exceptional preservation over decades. Another fascinating part of coin collecting is how unnoticed value can remain hidden in plain sight for years. A coin can sit in circulation, pass through thousands of hands, and still go completely unrecognized until someone takes a closer look. That's what makes coins like the 1986 quarter so interesting. They are ordinary until they're not. Think about how many 1986 quarters have already been lost, spent, or damaged over time. Every coin removed from circulation slightly increases the importance of the remaining ones. Scarcity builds slowly, without most people noticing. And that's how collector interest grows. But here's something important to remember. Not every 1986 quarter is valuable. In fact, most are not. The vast majority will always remain common coins used in everyday transactions. The real value lies in the rare exceptions, the ones with errors, exceptional condition, or unique characteristics. And those are extremely difficult to find. That's why collectors stay alert. That's why they check their change. That's why they examine every detail under light and magnification. Because they understand a simple truth. Rare discoveries don't announce themselves. You have to find them. So if you ever come across a 1986 quarter, don't rush past it. Take a second look. Turn it over. Examine the details closely. Compare it with another coin if possible. Look for anything unusual in the design, texture, or alignment. Because while most of these coins will always be worth only 25 cents, a very small number, the rare ones might carry far more interest in the collector world than anyone would expect. And that is the real magic of coin collecting. It turns something ordinary into something worth noticing. And sometimes something worth remembering.